and welcome to another episode of the magical world of G. Michael Vasey. And this week, I'm talking with Andy Cooper. I've had Andy on before and he talked about his Helios School of Magic. And in this episode, we caught up. He is in the process of putting together a new incarnation of the first degree course. And so we discussed that. And we also broached a wide degree of topics around magic, creativity, spiritual battles, and so on. I'm sure you'll find it very interesting. So here's the discussion with Andy Cooper. So tell me what then is going on with the school. How's it going? What's been the last couple of years like for you?
Well, it's just close to 10 and a bit years since we first launched the program. And so we took the opportunity in 2022, so 10 years after we launched it, to review it and decide what do we want to do, and does it still work? Is the training still relevant, and is it time we updated it?
Yeah.
And I think we came to the conclusion, we being me, a couple of my colleagues in Helios, and talking to some students, that actually it was time to seriously update the content or restructure it, because the world's a different place now. People sadly do not want to sit down and meditate for half an hour every day and follow that very kind of rigid process. So we looked at it and said, how do we look at that in a different way? And so I've restructured the content to create a very different model for delivering the kind of training in the Western Mysteries. So instead of a sort of daily meditation, the kind of classic Servants of the Light, Society of the Inner Light, Builders of the Editor model, I've taken it and modeled it around a different idea. So the learners have a workbook to complete, and that workbook gives them structured exercises to do. So it could be meditate on something, for example, and fill in the blanks in terms of what their experience was of meditating on this, or do the middle pillar exercise, or do the LBRP, or whatever it might be. But that the idea is a more structured approach than just take this tarot card and meditate on the same card every day for 3 days and see what you get. Taking a very different model to that. And we've just tested the first course. So the original program was essentially 3 years, 2.5 to 3 years to complete for the first degree. And it covered basics of tarot, basics of the Kabbalistic magic, the 4 worlds of the Qabalah, the Hebrew letters, all kinds of stuff. Neuro-Linguistic Programming. What we've done now is created 5 modules or 5 courses that can be done in any, well, apart from one, can be done in any order. We launch it at the end of February. So first course is Foundations of Magic. The second course is called Tarot Alchemy. Third course is called Accelerating Your Personal Evolution. The fourth course is Advanced Kabbalistic Magic. And the fifth is a diploma in Neuro-Linguistic Programming, approved by the American Board of NLP. So standalone modules, each one maybe takes 60 to 90 days to do. You could do them in any order, except Advanced Kabbalistic Magic, which is on what we call the initiation track. So very different, more freeform, less rigid, not supervised in the same way, a forum for learners to ask questions in and share their experiences, and that's moderated. But yeah, a very different approach.
And you released this in February.
We do, end of February. And I think the thing is, Gary, that first of all, I do think the world's a different place in terms of what people are willing and prepared to do, or even have the time to do. And secondly, I took a view that said the first degree, I don't want to be funny about this, but in many ways, the first degree of any program is weeding out the tourists. You'll be people who do it and they go, you know what, I love this, I'm going to do it, I'm doing more of it. And there'll be people who do it and go, that's not really for me, which is fine. Or there'll be people who do it and go, I've done 2 modules, I've really enjoyed it, and that's where I want to stop. All of that is good. But if you look at it from that point of view, then I kind of took a view that the real work starts when you get to what we would call the second degree training.
Okay.
And that's kind of what we've done. So 85% of the content that people cover, they can sign up, do a course, complete the course, and that can be the end of it, or they can go and do the other 3 or 4 that make up that program.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. In the SOL, that kind of a course, plainly it's about developing that internal contact, right?
Yes, it is.
And how does that work within your approach, if you don't mind saying?
That's a good question. So I would go as far as to say that if you follow the SOL course in its entirety to the letter of the kind of program, there's a reasonable chance that you would develop a inner plane contact of some kind. I did, and the initiatory process obviously assists with that. But I suspect that if you look at most people who do that program, they never complete it. There are certain points in the SOL course that Mr. Butler wrote that are key dropout points: lesson 12, lesson 24, lesson 33, I think it is, lesson 42, classic points where people drop out.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think most people actually do get to that point. And so then you have to ask yourself the question, if that's not what most people get, and we want to enable people to get the most they can get from this program, what are we actually trying to achieve? And I don't actually believe that it is about developing an inner plane contact. I think it is about how do people apply this stuff to change their life and have an amazing life.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I just wanted to ask that question because I know that particular course and some of the others like it are designed to get you to that particular point, and that seemed to me to be, one of the primary objectives. I agree that we live in a different time, and I think that people are less inclined to put in the work.
Yeah.
But I still believe that if you want to get the benefit, you need to put in the work. So, I mean, it seems to me that then what you're sort of doing is you're providing a basic foundation in principles and practices that make up magic, and you're encouraging people to sort of dip their toe in and say, well, yeah, this is great, I'd like to get more of this. Or actually, you know what, I'm not inclined to want to do this. And I think that's absolutely a wonderful thing to do, because I know that SOL had that sort of pre-course, which I never did.
No, I didn't do it either.
And I don't think that many people do. But it did seem to me that you sort of you jumped into something really quite rigorous and strict very quickly. And, I had, I don't know, 20 students maybe, and not one of them ever got past 30. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
And I think, I complained, I didn't complain, I apologized, up the ladder. And I got something back saying, well, don't apologize, it's pretty normal.
Yeah, and I think you're right in the sense that you've got to take a bigger view from it for me. So there's a multiple ways of looking at this whole thing we might call magical training. So at one level, people will do it because they're interested in it.
Yeah.
And that's a market. It's a group of people that we can serve, right? They're interested, they want to know more, but that's about it. Then there are the people who want to find out how to use it because they want to use it to change their life in some way.
Yeah.
And that's a potential issue in the sense that if you look at a lot of magical training, it's aimed at saying to people, how can I use magic in order to get something?
Yeah.
That doesn't resonate well with me, but that is a particular kind of mindset, if you like. And then there's the mindset of how can I use this to further my own spiritual evolution? So two very different perspectives. And Helios has always been focused, as the SOL was, on how do I use this to further my spiritual evolution?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important that we do that. So I think there are a group of people who just want to know more about it and are interested. In other words, they're kind of searching for information in a structured way. And that's great. Then there's the other group of people who are saying, how can I learn this to make my life better? which is great too. And then there's a group of people who's then, and I think it's people who have done that second one and then go, oh, guess what? This is really interesting. Now this is changing my life in ways I didn't expect. Now I'm kind of on that path of spiritual evolution.
Yeah.
So if you look at it from a neuro-linguistic programming point of view, we call it pacing and leading, meeting people where they're at and then taking them by the hand to where you kind of want them to be. And so I've looked at it and said, okay, let's look at it from the point of view of how might I use magic to become, or the magical processes to become more centered, more balanced, have more fulfilling relationships, develop myself in different ways. That's fine. And people will do that. And then they might go, hey, I want to take this further. And they might go, I've done enough. I think that emphasis is different from, say, the classic SOL, a BOTA in a light approach, which is basically, this is a full-on spiritual kind of evolutionary program. And that's totally fine. But I think we need to be reaching people who are not yet ready for that, or even they don't know that they might be.
Well, I think that's where I was going with the sort of view that there's a need for basic introductory courses that are still compelling, still magical, still have some personal benefit in the form of enhanced spirituality, a better way to live, a different perspective on things in general, without becoming, basically a monk for 5 years, meditating daily for 45 minutes and writing a diary. And now my perspective is I kind of like the way that I did it. But I know from supervising others that it was just too much. It was too much. You were asking too much of people to do it. And I'm also in the position where, I'm working with a partner these days on the dowsing and spirituality side. Mm-hmm. And she's very keen to learn a bit more about the magical side. And I'm very keen for her to do so. But it's really asking her to do a 5-year correspondence course with meditations daily is a bit of a tall order. And anyway, I have to wait 5 years.
Exactly.
In order to be able to talk about concepts like, Qabalah, etc. So to have some, well, my view is I've been feeding her books, right? And she reads the books. But if there were some sort of school where you could go in and learn some basic concepts about Qabalah, about something else, and this builds up to a sort of overall grounding in magical principles and what it's all about, and it has some incremental benefit in the sense that you become a more balanced person. You're able to see the bullshit that surrounds us all more clearly, and I'm all for it. And then there's some, once you decide that this is for me, I really need to become a magician. Proper full-fledged magician, then I think, you go on to look for, well, for me anyway, and perhaps even for you, I don't know, but for me, it's become, there isn't a school that I can find that gives me what I'm looking for. So I've kind of taken my own direction in a way, and I feel like I'm heading in a good way. But when you're not within the bounds of a school, and you don't have that infrastructure around you of fellow travelers and supervisors and infrastructure, you never know if you're actually missing if there's part of your training that's missing and you just don't realize it. Do you follow me?
I mean, I think that's an interesting point. I remember Dolores saying on more than one occasion, all magicians become mystics in the end.
Yeah.
I agree with that from my own experience now. And so when I started looking at how would Helios refocus what it does, because the world just isn't the same place anymore, and people aren't going to do a 5-year monolithic course where they have to meditate 6 days out of 7 and all that stuff. How would we create a more flexible approach with that, as I've just described, more flexible kind of basic grounding, if you like. Mm-hmm. Then what came to me was actually the end of the first degree, the beginning of the second degree, if you look at it in a kind of magical initiatory model, is where the real work starts. Mm-hmm. So what we did is we created an advanced Kabbalistic magic course that you do if you are choosing to what we might call sign up for the initiatory track. So you've done the basic stuff and you kind of go, I've done enough, I'm fine, I'm cool with that. Or you go, you know what, I want to take this deeper. At that point, and only at that point, then we will push people harder and we'll say, okay, we do demand that you do a meditation 6 days out of 7. We do demand that you do this, 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 and this. And that's for a period of 2 to 3 months, say 90 days to 120 days. And then, you'll be ready for initiation to first degree. Once people take that initiation to first degree and they step on the path of the second degree, which in Helios is completely based on the 12 hours of the duat, the Egyptian kind of model of evolution, if you like, through the journey of Ra through the underworld. That's a seriously heavy duty piece of work. So that's where the really major changes and work starts to happen. And I think that feels like it's the right approach. And I remember in one of my meditations with Anubis, with the contact behind Helios, as he is the contact, of course, behind the SOL, he said to me, Andy, he said, you've just got to get this out there. It was like, forget about all the kind of traditional way of doing it. How can you reach more people with this stuff? Forget about initiation. Just make sure that for that first level, you reach as many people as you can.
Yeah, because I mean, I think there's a thirst for meaning in life, and I think you talk about changes. I think people have less time, probably less patience, less able to concentrate, less able to dedicate, but there's still a search for meaning.
Absolutely.
And I think it is important that we are able to communicate how value and meaning can be found in life, and it's not the way that you might expect. There's definitely a sense that that's really needed, especially right now with all the stuff that's going on and the acceleration of the politicization of everything to the point where it becomes ridiculous. I mean, it seems to me that we've got a world at the moment where spirituality is being deliberately ridiculed, being deliberately suppressed. And I think there's a reason for that. If you cut people off from that light, that inner light, then if you want to compel people to do things for you rather than for them, you've already got a great start. So I think what you're doing is really valuable and should really appeal to a lot of people. In fact, I might even recommend it to Eva, because it sounds like a good way to gain a reasonable grounding of knowledge over a shortish period of time. And that's what I think people are looking for. And then if you choose, now I want to become the true monk, I want to become the true mystic, I want to become the true magician, whatever, then obviously you've got to work at that, just like you've got to work at anything else. And so you've got to up the effort and the workload in order to achieve it. And one of the things I find myself saying quite a lot, and it might sound bad, I don't know, it's not meant to. It's meant to be absolute honest, but I've written a few books myself, like Mystical Hexagram, The New You, and stuff like this. And I've also written a lot of blog posts in the past. And I was 8 years ago, I was probably close to something, and it's kind of receded again. And it's because I quit daily meditation. I quit putting the work in because I had other things pop up in my life, as you do, that distracted me and took me off in different directions.
I've had that experience too.
And now I read stuff I wrote 8, 9, 10 years ago, and I'm like, good grief, did I really write that? And it's so disappointing to look back a decade and realize you've gone backwards, not forwards.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely, Michael, that's been my experience too. If I let that practice drop, that happens. And I guess it's the same as somebody who goes to the gym and works out every day and then stops working out.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's true. And then suddenly you kind of go, oh God, I've not been doing my meditation and life's got in the way. And suddenly, I'm not where I was. And I think there's an important learning in that for all of us in the sense that this is not an excuse, but we are only human and life does get in the way. And
Yeah.
even for people who are first, second, or third degree initiates, life gets in the way, maybe in a different way. And maybe the universe will test us in different ways, but it is what it is. And we do have to, for me, it's about maintaining my connection to my purpose in life, to be honest. What am I here to do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
I think that's for everybody actually. I
oh
know it
yeah,
certainly would be for me, and I think that basically I dropped daily meditation. In fact, I dropped meditation altogether because I was busy doing other stuff, and now I'm trying to get back. So I'm trying to get back into the mode. I'm doing all this dowsing. I'm working with Eva, but she also had an interesting perspective, which was. Because I was like, I really should have stayed more focused and I should have continued doing what I was doing, and I didn't have the discipline and stuff like that. And she says, well, but maybe life just, maybe there's an aspect of living life where you need to go off on these journeys and come back and realize, my goodness me, I've just wasted a decade going round in circles. I've gone backwards.
well, yeah, but maybe it's that we touch people in different ways. So with your books, with your blog posts, with what you post on Facebook, then you're touching people in different ways. And it's not always going to be that same approach of you meditating every day and reaching people that way. There are different things at different points in our lives where that interaction will be different. And so I think also, if we go back to something you just said earlier, and I know this might be a shock to somebody, but I believe right now that we are in a spiritual war.
Oh, me too.
And that there are the powers that be that would want to limit the spiritual growth of humankind.
Yes.
And that's been done, throughout the centuries in different ways. But I think we're seeing it in many ways more overtly now.
Yeah.
The question then becomes, what are we doing to bring more light into the world? Because it is a pretty dark place right now. And, not to get too pessimistic about everything, it is. And I think that's partly, Ernest Butler said many years ago, not that I heard him say this, Dolores always used to quote him, that only the strongest souls are born at the turn of the millennium. And he strongly believed that many Atlantean souls were reborn in the 60s and 70s that were here to kind of guide the world through a period of very significant change. And we are in that period of the change between the ages into the age of Aquarius. And there is going to be some pretty big bumps along the road. So I think we are here to hold the space and to help people to grow as much as we can and as much as that's appropriate for them, raising our vibration, raising the vibration of the people who we train and touch and come into contact with will inevitably raise the vibration of the planet, even if in some small way. And I think that's what we're here to do.
I completely agree, and I also think we are in a spiritual battle, and sometimes I'm frustrated and allow frustration in because I can't see any obvious. Me being me, the personality I am, I just can't see any obvious way to defeat the thing to sort of overcome the things that I see going on. And so I tend to get a bit angry, and I've always had a fiery side to me, and I've got to learn to control it, because I've realized in the last few weeks even that what you just said was a really good summary. I mean, the work that we're doing, dowsing, finding energy vortices, looking at the churches and things, defining places of wonderful earth energies where spirituality and meditation can be enhanced, stepped up 10 times, and with the right frequency, sound frequencies, stepped up 100 times. That's really valuable.
Yes.
And also just sharing the experiences and the wonder of it, the strange synchronicities and some of the things that happen which you wouldn't believe, sharing that with people. You're bringing a touch of magic into their lives, and hopefully in some instances you're tweaking their interest levels as well.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I think we have all been tested, and that continues to be the case. And whether it's the fact that there are those who decided for whatever reason not to take the various medical products that have been on offer over the last few years, and had to withstand a certain amount of criticism and pressure because of that.
Yeah.
That's also, I think, part of the tests for many of us who recognize that there are certain things here that were designed to limit our spirituality. I think that happens to be one of them.
Yeah.
And so we are in a place where I believe, at least, that we want to try and create less division in society, not more. That we want to do as much as we can to raise the vibration of people and of the planet, and bring as much light here as possible. And I think, for example, one of the reasons I absolutely love Egypt and the Egyptian mysteries is not just because I think it's incredibly powerful and important, but because the beauty of ancient Egypt and the mystery of it is something that can, if I could put it this way, often appeals to the normies. And if in some way that can be used to inspire people, to even get them to be just a little bit interested in what might be more than them watching the rubbish that's on TV every night or whatever it might be. And I'm not criticizing anyone for doing that, but you know what I mean? Then if we can use that to inspire people and show them that there might be more to life, or to their existence, or to the world, or to what's possible, then I think we're doing some small service in some way. I was running a coaching course for people at the clients of the company I currently work for, and I'm head of coaching and learning development for a large training company in the UK right now. And I said to them, our job is to open people up to possibility. Open people up to being as resourceful, as creative as they can be, so they can see possibilities for their lives and for people that they never noticed or seen before. That in itself is a magical act.
I think the magical word there was creativity, because that's one of the things that as I've heard echoed from other people as well as myself, which is creativity is, if I may use the horrible word, sort of an inoculation against what's going on. Because if you can be creative, whether that's painting, writing, just anything, imaginative work, whatever takes your fancy, pottery, any creative activity, it really is like a defense against the dark arts, to use Harry Potter terminology.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, that's interesting you say that, by the way, Gary. I wrote in 2018 a training course on psychic self-defense, which I put onto Udemy. And it was a little bit of a project, really, just to see what would happen. There was nothing on Udemy at the time on psychic self-defense. I've had 800 people do that program.
Wow.
In the time since it's been there. And apart from one person who for some reason gave me 1 star, the average star rating has been about 4.9 out of 5 for most of the time it was on there. And that tells you something, right? If there's 800 people signed up to do a psychic self-defense course, they're clearly concerned about something.
You know that you've read some of my stuff, so I'm a complete believer that black magic is being used against humanity.
I think it is.
I can, cite examples. Imagine that you have it. Really? I'm going to use my own imaginative faculty to imagine that I have it? No, I'm not. I'm going to imagine that I don't have it, I never have it, and that, nobody else gets it either, because that's how magic, I know that this is magical.
Yes.
And there's so many other examples of how black magic is being used against humanity right now. And people laugh, the people that don't understand or have a different way of looking at things, that they laugh. But there's definitely psychology being used, that's negative psychology, to suppress people And it's to suppress their creativity. It's to suppress the light within them, and creativity is an aspect of that. So if you can be creative, then you're basically on the way to defeating those anti-spirituality forces that are at work in the world, in my view.
I agree. I mean, I actually think that those dark forces will not succeed. I think we'll go through a rocky patch, but I genuinely think the universe will not tolerate that. So as we move into the age of Aquarius and the level of vibration inevitably has got to increase, then that dark level of interference, let's put it that way, cannot possibly continue to exist as we raise the frequency and vibration of the planet and the people on it, which is an inevitable consequence, in my opinion, of the move to the age of Aquarius. I think it might take us a few hundred years to get there, but I think we will get there.
Yeah. Well, the Czech magician Franz Barden.
Yeah, yes.
If you look at some of the stuff that he said, or was reputed to have said, he was sort of making the case that people who had incarnated and passed on were on the other side complaining that they'd never been given an opportunity to learn what it was really about.
Absolutely. I remember reading that in one of his books.
Yes. And I think he's absolutely right. And I think that if you try to deprive people of the right to learn what it is truly about, then there's a karmic response to that.
Yes.
Because this is a fundamental universal law. You cannot stop people from wanting to grow spiritually. And
I totally agree. And I think that is ultimately the only raison d'etre for people being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Funnily enough, talking about courses, I'm actually trying to get my hands around Teachable right now, because I'm actually going to put up the mystical hexagram as a course.
Okay.
As well. My intention is not to create a magical school or any such grand venture, but to try to. The book has sold reasonably well for that kind of a book, but not once have I received anybody's take on doing the exercises, right? And we stated in the book, do the exercises and tell us, write to us, tell us what happened, tell us how it went and share with us. Nah, nothing. So I think it gets read as a book and not practiced as a practice. And I think by turning it into a course, for those that are interested and want to try, it will turn it into a practice as opposed to just a book. So that's what I'm trying to do.
That's a great idea. Teachable is a great platform. When I moved Helios to one of those online platforms, we evaluated a number of them: Kajabi, Thinkific, Teachable, LearnWorlds. And at the time, which was 2019, we decided to use Thinkific. I've subsequently revisited that decision, and frankly decided that the hassle of moving everything to a new platform for a relatively minor increase in functionality that, say, one offers over the other wasn't worth the effort. But they're all pretty good. They really are.
Well, I'm still learning. I haven't got very far because I'm trying to use video instruction and as well as just written word and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just sort of feeling it out as I go along, and it may take me a while to get to the point where I'm happy to put it out there. But especially since Sue passed on, I felt like there's a great experience there to be had if you approach it with some rigor. It's back to talking about doing the work, right?
It is.
And how much work do you want to do? And I think it can be read as a book, very interesting. I learned a little bit about the hexagram as a symbol and how it can be a key to unlocking greater value in Qabalah and other systems.
Yeah.
But if you don't actually do the exercises and go to the places and discover the places that Astaroth, my inner guide, showed me, then you're missing something of really startling, I believe. And that's why I want to turn it into a course where people can apply rigor to it, maybe just for a period of like you're saying, 90 days, 120 days, and it's done. Maybe you got something really fundamental out of it, and maybe it was just an interesting exercise. It doesn't really matter as long as it was a bit more than just an interesting read. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of I'm learning to read Egyptian hieroglyphics right now. And
Really?
yeah, I'm doing a night school class online.
Wow.
And the woman who teaches it is brilliant. I mean, she's an absolute expert in Middle Eastern ancient languages. And so she can teach, ancient Aramaic or ancient Egyptian or Coptic or classical Greek or whatever it is, or Semitic languages. Fascinating stuff. But what I also notice as you look at the hieroglyphics and transliterate them, and then from that convert them into English, you miss so much if all you do is treat them at the level of a kind of phonetic translation or transliteration. So
Yeah.
this cartouche of these symbols equals this.
Yeah.
If you take the time to meditate on those symbols, then what opens up is a whole new level of understanding.
Yeah.
Which is missed completely by the academic world.
Well, of
And
course, yeah.
that's what's so fascinating. And the kind of what you're saying too, the same thing, that you could read the book and get the information, but it's when you engage with it in a different way that
Yeah.
it starts to become life-changing.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah. What's interesting is that a few years ago, probably 8 years ago, I decided that having bought and read Dolores's book on the alphabet, forget what that was called now.
Illuminations.
Yeah, Illuminations. I thought, you know what, I'll try this with the English alphabet, and I actually got through. I got through the first three letters, and it was really, really valuable experience. Really interesting stuff.
Well, that's
But
interesting.
but again, I got distracted at D. But I keep thinking I should go back to that because it was really, I mean, ABC, there was so much that came out that I was just, amazed. Just looking at the simple shape and meditating on the shape and the sound, and it just was incredible experience. But again, I got distracted. I know why I got distracted.
Well, Dolores claims, has always said to me, at least privately, that Illuminations she considers to be her best work.
Yeah.
It is a remarkable book. And I think if you look at the Hebrew letters, then just like the Egyptian hieroglyphics, which actually they evolved from, and you can see the connections, certainly from the course I'm doing, it's that, to my mind, they operate in exactly the same way that Reiki symbols do.
Yeah.
So they can be used in a kind of energetic healing way, in the same way that Reiki symbols, Huna symbols, or any of those energy healing systems work. And this is where I think, we're missing a trick, because when, as an occultist, or I hate that word, an occultist or an esotericist or a magician looks at it, you look at it from a very different lens than through a kind of academic lens. This is what this means. It's much more fluid than that.
Yeah. And the other thing I've been trying to do is, I think you probably, maybe, do you get my Substack? I've been trying to.
I do. I read your Substack.
I've been trying to use Substack as well to kind of gently provoke people to think a little bit about the nature of reality and their role in it. And yeah, it's tough to write an article every day.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it is. I couldn't do it.
But yeah, I'm hoping that also. I mean, I don't really know what I'm trying to do. I'm not organized in the sense that I'm trying to build a school or anything. I'm just trying to do what if I have any talents, I'm just trying to use them, in a way that prompts people to think. And I've had some really good feedback from some people on the Substack blogs as well, which is helpful and nice to know that people are actually reading them and getting some value from, making them think. Yeah.
Yeah, I read it every day. There's two or three people I follow on Substack actually who've written some really quite thought-provoking, interesting things, and I think all of us are contributing to go back to that idea of waking people up and raising the vibration of the planet. It's all this myriad of small ways that actually make the difference. And so if we can wake one person up and then somebody else, and they wake another person up, then we are doing our bit to chip away at the kind of consensus of normies that
Yeah.
are where they are. I'm not criticizing normies. It's an observation rather than a criticism that
Yes.
people come here at different levels of development and evolution, and part of the process of being on the earth plane is to experience that at whatever level people are at.
I do miss the SOL though, I must admit. The way it was. And not to criticize the way it is, because I don't know how it is, but the way it was back when, I was active, you were active.
I have been thinking significantly about that because it is different now. It's a completely different animal, and I have nothing to do with the SOL. Only for the reason that I have no reason to, because I'm pretty busy doing my own thing.
Yeah.
I have in the past kept in touch with Steve Critchley, and he knows that I'm always there if he needs his support. If he needs my support, I'm always there to do that. But I am seriously considering putting together a series of those big workshops that we used to run, because I've had people ask me, and I haven't done. No, the last big workshop we ran was the Mists of Avalon in 2010.
Right.
And I think it is time that we provided that opportunity again for people
Yeah.
to have that fully immersive experience.
Count me in. If you do something, let me know, because
Well,
I'll make
I've
every
gone
effort to get there.
I've gone so far as to sort out the venue, and Oxenhoath, we did them before, and they've given me a list of available dates for the end of this year. I need to get it organized, but I feel very strongly that the thing that those amazing workshops did, me and Dolores put together and co-wrote and co-presented, was that they gave people what in the neuro-linguistic programming world we would call an undeniable experience.
Yeah.
And it's that undeniable experience that you can't get from reading books. You can only get from being in the environment that we skillfully create, that actually motivates and keeps people on track, because they'll have that experience and they'll say, oh God, I never ever imagined I could have such an amazing experience. That's inspired me or motivated me to continue my work.
I went to a number of Dolores events, also went to Ritual with Purpose a couple of 3 times, and I got so much value and so much experience from those. And I tell you, I mean, I'll go on public record. I regret not being able to free myself up to attend some of the silent eye retreats that they did when Sue was around.
Yes, I've heard nothing but good things about those retreats.
I was, in retrospect, I wish I'd at least managed to get to one of them. I mean, I've done a couple of the weekend outings, which are also very good. But I never got to the annual sort of ritual weekend. And obviously now she's gone, and she's, in my opinion, from my perspective, sorely missed. And I just regret that I never took the opportunity to do that, to take that weekend and just dedicate the weekend for that purpose. I'm quite sad about it, actually.
Yeah, it's interesting that just before Christmas, I did a pretty full-on week of initiations here in Glastonbury, and I did a first-degree initiation and then 2 second degrees, and those 2 second degrees are actually those 2 people were only the second and third second degree initiations I've ever done under the Helios kind of banner. So we hired the assembly rooms in Glastonbury for the second degree initiations, and I run a lodge in Glastonbury, so we had my magical lodge there, and we had someone who'd flown in from Los Angeles and 2 people who'd flown in from Vancouver. It's a reasonably big event, and I actually hired a whole set of Egyptian theatre props from a company in Glastonbury that happened to be a theatre prop hire company. So we hired statues and pillars and all the stuff.
Yeah.
And it was, not only was it of course a lot of fun, it was a big reminder that doing that and going to that level of effort and detail to create a sacred environment that was also beautiful and breathtaking and all the rest of it literally shifted people's experience in a way that we wouldn't have done had we just done the same initiation in some kind of crappy hall that was all a bit run down and rustic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, that's really important, that we can create that space that enables people to have, a wholly different experience that they would never get in the kind of normal world.
No, I absolutely agree. That's been my experiences anyway. I mean, there's times now I just I haven't been on something like that now for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and I really just would love to again. And to be honest, I've been looking around to see what's going on, and SOL seems to be sort of in a dormant phase, shall we
I
say?
think so, yeah.
And Silent Eye plainly is also in a transition phase because Sue, passed away, and so Steve has had to, I guess, rethink it a little bit. And I haven't been able to find anything. So, if you're doing something, let me know. I'll try my damnedest to be there, and I'm sure I'd bring someone with me as well with any luck. Before we go any further, though, we've been going for quite some time, so I do want to just come full circle and make sure that we kind of finish off what we were talking about right at the very beginning, which is to sort of summarize, if people are interested in Helios, what do they need to know, where do they need to go, and what can they expect?
So, as I said, our website is helios-school-school.com. We will be changing the website in the next few days to open it up for people to pre-register for our new program, which we will launch at the end of February. And what can they expect? Well, we're doing a number of things actually to build an online community that we've never done before. So we're changing the pricing model significantly, making it way more affordable to reach more people. We're making it $19.99 a month as a subscription. And for that membership, you get access to all the 4 programs in the first part of the first degree to do at your own pace. You get access to a forum where people can ask questions and leave messages and share their experiences and find a study buddy, as we call them. We also are going to be launching a monthly book club where we have a live Zoom session and people can read a book, and then it's discussed at the end of the month. We've got a whole list of different occult books we want to go through. And then I'll be running a monthly webinar on some topic related to the first degree program, and we'll be publishing a calendar of that in February for the rest of the year. So we're really keen on providing a community where people can come and share their experience, take part, find like-minded people, and to do a training. And it's hard for me to say this because I wrote it, so clearly I'm biased. But if you look at the way the training is being put together, as you know, Gary, I'm 60 years old now, and I've been a learning and development professional for 30 years.
Yeah.
I'm head of coaching and learning development for a big national training company in the UK. So I understand L&D really well. That's what I'm paid to do for my day job.
Yeah.
So there aren't many people who are learning and development professionals who also are high-grade initiates who know how to take the magical stuff and turn it into a course that actually makes it understandable and usable for normal people. And a friend of mine here in Glastonbury, another magical teacher, actually, very experienced one, someone I really respect. And she said to me only the other week, Andy, she said, the quality of what you've put together is light years different from what anybody else is doing in this field. And sometimes I forget that because I look at it and go, oh, well, it's just what I would do. But looking at it more dispassionately, I think we probably do have one of the best magical curriculums put together in a structured way that with videos and workbooks and nice graphics and all the rest of it that is out there right now.
Well, I'll certainly be taking another look after today. So many thanks to Andy for what was a really, really interesting chat. I really enjoyed myself. Thank you for listening. I hope that you found it interesting and useful. If you want to learn more about Andy and his school, please do consult the notes associated with this podcast for the links that you'll need. And if you did enjoy, please do like, share, and generally put it around a bit, because that's the way that we promote this particular podcast. This is G. Michael Vasey saying thanks again. Goodbye.